On this virtual tour stop, I am showing you the third stage of stand development, known as Understory Reinitiation. So we are in about a 115-year-old stand, and like most of the stuff that I manage up here in the Piedmont, this was an agricultural field at least once before. A lot of the stuff that I manage has actually been farmed and abandoned twice. Some of it has been farmed and abandoned 3 times since the 1700s. So a lot of anthropogenic disturbance out here. But this particular stand, about 115 years old, as it's worked its way through kind of stem exclusion, a lot of those co-dominant hardwoods that were also part of that original cohort really have kind of become dominant overstory trees at this point. So we still have the usual suspects of loblolly, like the one right behind you, and shortleaf pine in here, but we also now have pretty large diameter, large crowned, tall, yellow poplars, black oaks, white oaks. There's some big sweet gums right up the hill. So, you know, kind of the usual suspects that we see on these Piedmont sites. But what kind of separates this from from stem exclusion is I want to draw your attention to these trees on either side of me right here, these 2 big shortleaf pines that came down. So both of these, if you want to look behind you, they actually snapped off behind you. And in the process of breaking off, they created pretty decent sized canopy gaps right behind you because they're growing right next to each other. So, you know, large crown trees, they opened up a decent amount of growing space, more growing space than we would accept than we would expect the surrounding trees to just immediately close in on. So it's actually releasing that understory cohort that has become established, mostly of shade tolerant species like sourwood and red maple, and there's some American beech back in there too. But on their way down, they snap the top out of this big loblolly pine tree, and I know the sun will probably blind you here, but if you can see it, this big pine tree that Ava's standing right next to, that thing has a broken top out of it. The top's actually on the ground right over here. And then on their way down here, they caused a lot of damage in the periphery. So, you know, gap formation and then periphery. And they've bent over and broken off and damaged a lot of red maple and sourwood and stuff like that in here. So a disturbance of, you know, an overstory removal of this size, we would expect to see the understory reinitiate in here. And I think we're seeing that. I mean, I really, these are big enough areas that I do expect that we're going to start to see some of this shade tolerant stuff really start to take off. There are other portions of this stand where there's even larger canopy gaps formed. It's just kind of hard to get into them and hazardous to set the camera up. So, but anyway, just wanted to kind of show you this third stage of stand development. And unfortunately, I believe this is going to be the last video, mainly because I do not really have anything that I would categorize as the complex stage under my ownership. Or management. We typically harvest stands long before they get to that point. This is kind of on the late side of stands under my management. Believe it or not, I have other stuff that is a higher priority to remove. We're having more mortality in those stands. And I have some constraints with allowable cut. So we have some stuff like this, but usually this is about as late as we like to keep things growing, and then we start over again. So at least on our pine acreage. So with that, I'll shut off, and I hope these videos helped, I guess, visualize some of these stages of stand development that really form that continuum. So.